diving into the world of fantasy. What's up guys, my name's Emily. If you're new to the channel, I am 22 years old. I read a lot of books, as you can see, and I like to talk about them. And today specifically, I want to provide a little intro video for getting into the fantasy genre. I slowly started reading fantasy probably about a year and a half ago. I went to college for communication studies and I had a certificate of undergrad study in creative writing. So I was required to take 4 courses in creative writing. One of the classes that I ended up taking was writing the YA novel. And this class was so much fun. I had to write like 10,000 words towards a YA novel. In this class, we were required to read a couple YA books. And one of the books was a fantasy YA, and everything just kind of snowballed from there. A lot of the people in my class were already big readers and were already well into the fantasy genre, so I was very on the outside with all of this. They were talking about Acotar, and I had absolutely no clue what Acotar was, what that word meant, like what it stood for. Like they would talk about Acotar and I would literally be like, what is everyone talking about right now? Like I have no idea what we're discussing. Yeah, so I'm gonna provide you guys with a little introductory course to getting into fantasy. If you've never read it before, I love fantasy. It is so much fun. I wish I had a video like this for me when I started reading fantasy, because I was absolutely clueless as to what everything was. So let's just jump right in. Okay, we are going to start off pretty basic with just magic-based fantasy. So there's a lot of subgenres of fantasy. I'm going to start with what I think is the easiest to jump right into, which is just magic. The first one I want to talk about is the series of 3 Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This was the book that I actually had to read for that class I was just talking about. So this follows this magic world where these 3 princesses are competing against each other to become queen of their kingdom. All of them have a magical power. Each one is different. And what happens is they have to fight for the death to become the queen. This is like a very basic and standard fantasy series. So it has a lot of magic and it has a lot of politics. Each sister has like a sidekick as well. So there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of dynamics between these characters. A lot of world building in which we figure out how this world functions and what it functions on. And there's also these little details that are very common in fantasy novels where there's impending doom almost. So there's something going on in the world prior to the book, I suppose, that is threatening the existence of the society, if that makes sense. So there's kind of like an external threat as well as the internal threat. The magic powers that these girls have are so entertaining to read about. We have these 3 main characters and each chapter follows a different girl and they each have different powers. It is very easy to jump into. There is some romance in here, there's some action, and there are high stakes, which is also another huge aspect of the fantasy genre. There's always high stakes. I think this is a super great genre to jump into if you're just starting with fantasy. Once again, this is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. Jumping into another series, this one much more well-known with magic, we have the 6 of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. You, I'm sure, have heard of this. A little introduction of everything you need to know before you start these. The 6 of Crows duology is set in a world called Grishaverse. Called the Grishaverse. I don't know if it's Grisha or Grisha. So these 2 books are in the Grishaverse, and then the other series, Shadow and Bone, those are also set in the same exact world, but they are different characters. I personally started off with Shadow and Bone. I think that was a milder version of 6 of Crows. I think this is much more interesting though. So 6 of Crows is the first in this duology. This is a lot of magic, a lot of high stakes, and a lot of world building. So this takes place in Ketterdam, which is like a bustling city. There's lots of crime, lots of poverty, lots of rich people, just your basic city. It's easy to understand the inner workings of the city. It is not like super in-depth into the world building, just enough to like help you understand where we are located. There's a lot of sketchy stuff that happens in the city, and this follows Kaz Brucker, who is a criminal prodigy, and his group of friends who are also criminals, and they get an opportunity for the heist of a lifetime. And there's a lot of magic in this as well. People have magical powers, and that just makes this 10 times interesting. The group of people that are performing this heist are just incredible. The characters are so unique and are so fun together. You will love this. This is kind of their adventure, pulling off this heist. It is so fast-paced and so high-staked that you will not want to put this down. There's romance in here as well, so if you're looking for something with romance, there is some romance in here, and it gets better in the second book as well. Also go to the Shadow and Bone series if you're looking for some romance. There's some in there too. That one has a lot of evil mixed with it. So if you're looking for a little bit more action, then save this one. I would recommend starting with Six of Crows or Shadow and Bone. Another book that is heavy on magic is my favorite book from 2022, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This kind of deals with a deal with the devil. This is a girl in the 1700s who makes a deal with the devil to have no restraints, to be free, and that comes with a lot more restrictions than she thinks. Nobody can ever remember her name or her. So she goes through life for centuries without having a single person remember her. So there's the magic. This fantasy is a little bit more mellow. There's not like as much action as much as it is character building as she goes through the centuries and across continents, and there is a little bit of romance. So compared to these, which are very action based, this one is pretty character based. Okay, now we're going to jump into a bit of like a more difficult subgenre of fantasy, and that is fae. So I had no idea what fairies were going into any of these novels, and I was very confused for a while. So I'm going to tell you what they are, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to fae. Fae are magical beings that are not human but look like human. They're human that look like human but extremely beautiful, and they have incredible superhuman power. So they are extremely fast, extremely strong, incredibly powerful, but they look like humans, just like incredibly beautiful human beings. They have a connotation of being sneaky and evil, and in most cases they live in the same world as humans but separate from humans. So that's pretty much all you need to know about fae. They are not like fairies, which was what I thought, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie, that's what I pictured. That's not what they are. Not like Tinkerbell, not at all. First we have the Folk of the Air series. This also has The Cruel Prince. That's the first book. I just don't have a copy of that one. So this one follows a human girl growing up in a fae world. She is kind of kidnapped when she is a child and brought up in the fae world, and she is ostracized for being human. The fae do not like her, and it is a bit of an enemies to lovers, but majority of this series is politics. It is a lot about who runs the fae world, all the like secrets, lies, deceits, the hierarchy of power, who's fighting to become in power, who's evil, who's not evil, all of that stuff. It's super interesting and very fast-paced. And with a series like this one, I think each book gets better and better. And if you are looking for more romance, each book has, I think, a little bit more romance than the last one. This is one of my all-time favorite series ever, but the first one's not that great. You have to get through the first book to really enjoy it, and then once you get to the second and the third, you will understand why. There is just so many moving parts. The characters are incredible. The female main character is just awesome. I love Jude so much. You will love this. Okay, and I'd say the most popular fantasy series right now on social media is the Acotar series. This follows Feyre and her journey into Fae territory. Feyre is a human, and she is out hunting one day for her family. She is the youngest of, I think, 3 sisters, so she is kind of left in charge of providing for her family. She is out hunting one day and she shoots a wolf. Little does she know this wolf was actually a fae, so they can shapeshift. So some very important fairy from the fairy world comes into the human world and tells her, I can either kill you for what you did or you can be my prisoner. So she chooses to be his prisoner in the fairy world. In this universe, the fae and the humans are divided by a magical wall. So she has to cross over the wall. She's never been there before, and the fairy are kind of like a mythical legend in her society, in her world. People know that they're real, but there's a lot of old rumors about them, about their cruelty and all this stuff. So this is like a very daunting task for her. If you're looking for a fae kind of book with romance, this is for you, because these are very, very, very heavy in romance. While these are more political, these are as well, but I'd say these are kind of heavier with the romance than the other series. So if you're looking for something that is high stakes, a lot of action, a lot of world building, but also a lot of romance, I recommend picking up this series. Okay, the next subgenre I want to talk about is kind of dark academia fantasy. So if you're looking for a type of fantasy book that is a little bit more realistic and takes place in the world that we know, then I think these 2 books would be a great start for you. So the first one that I have here is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This Leigh Bardugo is the author of the Six of Crows and the Shadow and Bone series, so you know that she knows how to write fantasy, but this takes place in our world that we know, so it's a little bit easier to digest in that sense. So this follows Alex Stern. She is caught up in a world of drug dealers and shady people, and she wakes up from a homicide in a hospital bed and is offered a place in Yale's freshman class. Very confused, she takes the opportunity and she is thrown into the world of secret societies. So these secret societies kind of deal with paranormal activity and magic. So she is just thrown completely into this world, and it is a crazy experience. The second book actually just came out yesterday, so now is a perfect time to pick this one up. So this is a great pick if you're looking for a darker, realistic kind of dark academia fantasy. On the lighter end of dark academia is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is also the same kind of idea, a secret society in college. This follows the main character, Bree, and her experience kind of being thrown into the world of secret societies, but these secret societies deal with magic pertaining to King Arthur and the Legend of the Round Table. I like this one better than I like Ninth House. It's a bit lighter in the sense of like trigger warnings, so like there's definitely trigger warnings for this book, so check them out before you start this. This one deals a lot with like race and gender issues, but it is not heavy in content. It's a lot of action and a ton of magic and a ton of secret societies, and it's just a blast. I had so much fun reading this one. The second book came out in the past few months, so that is another reason to pick this up. Okay, I think I'm going to end the video there. I feel like that is a good introduction to fantasy. Like, those are really good options, and they are very entry-level fantasy. I by no means am like a pro at fantasy. Those are like the only ones I've read. I have a ton on this bookshelf waiting for me to pick up, so hopefully within the next few months I can do like a level 2 fantasy course, but for now I think that's a good start. If you guys end up picking up any of those books, please let me know. I'd love to talk to you guys about them, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks for watching.